Okay, so let's start with today's lecture. Uh, as all of you know that we will be covering the Indian polity, and this kind of model will consist of two lectures, two introductory lectures in the first week, and then in the next week the second lecture will be followed by. To start, the structure of today's session is, I have divided it in the 5 parts. The first part will be dealing with the what is polity, why we are studying it. Then second topic will be about the significance and the importance of Indian polity in UPSC civil services examinations. Third part we will deal with, in the third part we will deal with the syllabus reading, pre plus mains. Fourth, point wise discussion, and the fifth we will talk about the resources point wise. All right, am I clear on this? Okay, so before I start lecture, make sure that whenever I am not audible to you, you can, remove your mic from the mute and tell me that I am not audible enough, or else you can just put me the message in the chat section. All right, am I clear?
Yeah, we are clear, sir. You can start the lecture.
Yes, yes. Good, good. Okay. Uh, so starting with the first part, what is polity? So see, I will be asking you some questions also meanwhile. So what you do, you do not have to unmute your mic and answer the question, but you can just put it on the chat section. All of you have the chat section, just put your answer in that chat section so that we can continue uninterruptedly. So let's start with this. What is polity? What do you mean by exactly polity? See, we know that the polity is a very ancient term. Even the democracy is very ancient term. So we have to find to understand the today's structure and the functionings of polity or the government, or the government led by the constitutions. We need to understand the word polity, and also its genesis in the sense, I mean, the origin of the polity, where, from what point, and from where we exactly started, kind of need of this polity to the society. So we have to go into the genesis or the origin to understand the today's structure. And so of course, you would be coming up with the next question: is the polity as same as the government? So we will also be dealing with that. And the third question, consequently, which we ask ourselves is, why do we need it, either of the above? So that's why we have to understand the genesis of polity. So getting back into the ancient history, or even we can say that in the history of Adimanos or the primitive man, we could say that in primitive era, or the when primitive men women were there, they did not, uh, they kind of did not need this kind of quality. Why? For various reasons. The first reason is, of course, uh, the resources in their times were in ample amount, so they did not, for example, whenever I used to give lecture in the classroom, I would give this example of the classroom itself. Suppose this classroom is our, suppose you enter in kind of physical classroom where we all study, and that is only our world. The classroom is only our world, and this is our first day when we enter in that classroom. That is, we are born into the world. So what is the first thing you seek for? The first thing, the very first thing, and your main motive or objective by entering in that classroom or getting born in the world of classroom is to get learn. So to get learn, the first thing you seek for is to sit. All right. So you search for the benches. You seek for the benches around yourself. Suppose you guys are in 20, in the number of 20, and 20 or 30, and the number of benches, or the benches could occupy 100 of the people. You really don't have to interact with each other. You people don't interact with each other. आप लोग आपस में बात नहीं करते एक दूसरे से. To seek, to grab a seat. Why? Because there are ample amount of resources. So in this case, whenever there is no minimum or minimal kind of interaction, we don't need any kind of central authority to control over you, because you always behave in same manner. But suppose if you enter in a classroom in the number of 30, but the benches could occupy only 10 people, then there is a problem. Then what you do? You see, you only tell me what will you do in the chat section? What will you do? Suppose there are not enough benches and you are entering in the classroom. What will you do? So some people would say that we will stand adjustments. Some person is saying, Sam Fisher is saying adjustment. They will do adjustment. Some people will say that we will come to the conciliatory positions where you would come to an agreement, like you sit for 15 minutes, I sit for 15 minutes, another person will sit for 15 next 15 minutes. So in this way you will go. But you know what, uh, there are two things which rides, or which overrides the human passion or human rational. So whenever you come to the conciliatory position, it means you are behaving in a rational manner. But believe me when I say that I don't believe in this thing which says that humans are rational beings. First, they are passionate animals. When we say that they are passionate animals, they try to possess over the things around themselves. They try to grab everything which is they are surrounded by everything. And this possessive behavior or the passionate behavior of human puts all the people in this conflict position. For example, I will give you the same example of the classroom. When you go to the classroom where the benches are not in enough numbers, and you already have come to the conciliatory position that I will sit for 15 minutes, for next 15 minutes you will sit, for next 15 minutes some other person will sit. If any person among these people exceeds their 15 minutes, then there will be a conflict. लाइक अरे ये तो 5 मिनट ज्यादा बैठा, अभी मैं भी 10 मिनट ज्यादा बैठूंगा, अरे वो तो 10 मिनट ज्यादा बैठा, मैं अभी 15 मिनट ज्यादा बैठूंगा, लाइक दिस. एंड कॉन्फ्लिक्ट, एंड यू पुट योर सेल्फ इनटू द कॉन्फ्लिक्ट सिचुएशन. अभी ये बढ़ता भी जा सकता है झगड़ा, अगर आप बाद में जाके वो बेंचेस उठा के एक दूसरे के सर पे पटक दोगे. ऑल राइट, सो वी हैव दिस काइंड ऑफ बिहेवियर. सो व्हाट वी आर डूइंग बाय वो बेंचेस उठा के एक दूसरे के सर में पटकते समय आप जो बेंचेस थे वो भी डिस्ट्रॉय कर रहे हो. सो दिस इज नॉट गुड. So even if as there is this political scientist, you don't have to remember the name, just for the sake of convenience I have put his name, Hobbes. Hobbes says that human passion always overrides the human rational. That is, आपकी पैशन, आपका जो पोजीशन है आपके अंदर चीजों को लेके, वो हमेशा रैशनल बिहेवियर को ओवरराइड करता है. आपका रैशनल बिहेवियर उसके सामने कुछ नहीं होता है और पैशन ज्यादा होता है. इन दिस scenario, what you do, you come to the conflict position. But believe me, even if I earlier said that I don't believe human as a rational being, they have the rational comes in the situation where it is your own. Wait a sec, I am opening my camera. Okay, can you see me now? Hello. Yes, okay. So in this situation, what people do or human do for their own happiness or for their own you know kind of what we could say that for their own benefit, they come to the resolution. And that's where rational also comes into the scenario. Resolution for, and they try to find the solutions to this conflict. That's why another political scientist says human rational is the human passion. So what does it mean? That you come together and you decide that what we will do, we will now fix this problem. As we know that we cannot believe, we cannot trust each other. What we will do, we will make some person who you can who you consider as a most rational human being among yourself as an authority. All right, as an authority, as an authority. When you put that person as an authority, that person gets a responsibility of regulating over you. That he or she will be regulating that who is sitting for 15 minutes and who is exceeding, whoever is exceeding, and some kind of punishment will be there, and that authority or the person on that authority will punish you accordingly. So in this process, in this example, what you see is that when you came together to solve this conflict of the benches, you form a civil society. So what you do whenever you come together to discuss your problems and try to solve those issues, you form a civil society. So interaction is the basic part or is the basic foundation of this any kind of civil society. uh, and this civil society then appoints an authority to rule and regulate over you. And that authority is nothing but your today's government. That's what we call either it as a state or the polity. All right. So as I already have told you that the authority which is formed could be called as the government. Of course, it could be called as government, but in ancient era there were many kind of government. We could not always call authority as a government. Sometimes, hello, am I audible?
Sir.
Yes, sir, you are audible, sir. You are audible.
Yeah. Okay. Uh, okay. 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 So sometimes, in ancient era, there are many kind of polities used to be or used to exist. For example, oligarchy, then tyranny, or there were a lot of kinds of we used to call it the Raja. In medieval times, we had the king, the rule by the king and the queens. All right. So if we talk about the ancient democracies, you always tend to you always tend to think of the Athens, where you think that there were democracy, but that kind of democracy
Sir,
and
will
today's
you repeat
democracy
again?
is which
Sir, you
part?
are not audible properly.
Am I audible now?
Yes, sir. Will you repeat again from democracy?
Okay. So what we think whenever we try to think about the ancient era or the ancient polity, you always think that in ancient era, especially in Athens and Sparta, that there was democracy. So even if we think that particular kind of polity as a democracy, there is lot of difference between that democracy and today's democracy. How and why you will we will discuss it just after this. First we should try to find out what kind of democracy today we live in. We need to know what kind of polity we used to be in medieval age. That is, here I have mentioned the name as a state, medieval nature of state as in government only. All right, capital S वाला state, not the राज्य. मराठीत ज्यांना आपण राज्य म्हणतो ते नव्हे. So the feature of medieval state was that it was controlled by the religion. State and religion were not that much separated as we think today. All right, not just state, but the every sphere of the human lives were dominated by the religion. That is, religion used to control what you should do, what you should wear, what you should eat, where you should spend your money, on what things you should spend your money. So and basically what we think that medieval nature of state, or the state in the medieval era were ruled by the kings and the queens. And when we say that they were ruled by the kings and the queens, we come up with this idea of divinity right of king. What that what does I mean by that? We used to think that these kings and the queens had got the God's message to rule over us. All right, this is the one
Sir,
feature
sir,
that
sir,
our
sir,
lives
Alright.
were.
sir, it was in the Middle East, no? That Islamic states were
No, no,
having
no,
all
no,
the
no.
rule of.
No, 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 no. We will discuss it later on. For now, if you want to ask any question, no, put it in the chat section, please. Otherwise, it will, sorry to be very blunt, but it will disturb my link. All right. Okay, so we will deal with this question later on. Religion was in the Middle East. No, in medieval era, religion used to be at the center of the society in every country and every part of the world. All right. The second feature of this medieval period is that the ascribed statuses were highly regarded. Ascribed statuses means what? Ascribed means जो जब आपका जन्म होता है और तभी से आपको जो आइडेंटिटीज लग जाती है. For example, when you get born, you born in a specific family, which might be Hindu, Christian, or Muslim, or you get born in context of India, you get born in particular caste. So suppose a person belongs to Hindu religion, Maratha caste, and particular region, then that person will be uh, you know uh, recognized with those identities. That is those statuses. We called it ascribed statuses. All right. But now modern democracy. So talk about the modern democracy. Why we are talking about modern democracy? Because whatever kind of polity we have, Indian polity we have here today, is highly influenced by this modern democratic idea. To understand this modern democracy, we need to understand the notion of modernity in very brief. Modernity means what? People think that modernity means the technology, or the technological upgradation, or maybe
Right.
kind of scientific innovations, or maybe other things. But no, notions of modernity lies in the values of modernity, values of that particular period, which change or which made our world to transit from medieval to the modern society. And those notion of modernity you would find in the process of Renaissance and Enlightenment. So what is the difference? I will tell you. And you would say that what kind of modern ideas these democracies possess. First, three things which were given by the French Revolution. All of you know. First, equality, then liberty, and then fraternity. Now you would say, what is big deal about the equality? Equality must be there. Today it's not a big deal for us. Might be it's big deal even today, but most of people think that it's not a big deal to exercise the equality. But yes, it's a big deal. I would say how and why with two examples. First example, even in that period, just to say that uh, uh, that upper caste people are suppressing the lower caste people. Mahatma Phule used to do that. So not just upper caste people used to throw stones on the Mahatma Phule, but low people from downtrodden caste also used to throw Mahatma Phule. Why? Because they used to say that who are you to say that we are suppressed. They used to say that, or they used to consider that we are Dalits today because just because you know just because of our past sins. So who talks about the past sins and the next life? Nothing but the religion. So the point is, religion used to be at the center of the society in medieval state. So modernity plays a vital role about the equality and liberty. So when the French Revolution becomes the epitome of this modernity. Why? Because for the first time it gives responsibility to inculcate such modern values like equality, fraternity, and liberty to the government. That is, before French Revolution, only people like individuals like Rousseau, maybe Rancière, maybe Montesquieu, they used to they had the responsibility to inculcate these things. But after the French Revolution said that now from now on it is the responsibility of the government itself to inculcate these modern things. And that's how your modern democratic framework of government comes into the scenario. And that's why even today we have in our constitutions these three words: liberty, equality, and fraternity in bold and capital, if you read the preamble. And that's why we said this kind of polity as a modern democratic polity. Am I clear till this? Do you have any question? Hello, am I audible?
Yes, sir. You are
Yes,
audible.
sir.
Okay, do you have any question till now?
No, sir.
No, sir, no.
Okay, cool. So now let's come to the proper the nature of Indian polity, which we have to study for UPSC civil services examination. All right. So as we already have discussed that what kind of polity we live in the modern democratic polity. Okay. And once you understand this, you will be able to understand each and every concept which has been given in the constitution, or which is related to the Indian polity. All right. So that's why that was the prologue which I had to talk about in this introductory section or introductory session. Now, what is the general significance or the importance of the Indian polity for UPSC civil service examinations? Indian polity is kind of only versatile subjects which could be used, or the knowledge of the subject could be used in any other part, or the any other subject of the UPSC. For example, right from the GS1 to GS2, GS3, GS proper, GS2 is the part. Itself is a polity. GS3, GS4, even essay, and maybe and might be you could use it in optional subjects also. Anyway, so first importance is it is important in all the three stages of your civil service examinations. It is there in the prelims, and you know that most of the times only, so in certain cases they UPSC had asked very little or very less number of questions in prelims, but usually polity, occupies the lot of space in prelims question paper. Even in, if you go through the 2019 paper, there were 19, not 19, 18 questions, 18 or 19, 18 or 19 questions they asked from the polity itself. Means, of course, there is a separate paper on that. I already told you that there is a separate paper GS2, and also you could use the most of the terms and all of these things in essay, in GS1 also to some extent, and in other other papers also. All right. Now the significance, second is the significance of these subjects. If we try to carry forward it, even when you get into the services, it is of course important, because that's what you are going to do. When you get into services, you have to ensure that equality is there, labor is there, and accordingly you will have to formulate the policies as a bureaucrat. All right. In essays, I already have covered this point. Then as a reference in all other subjects, like Indian economy and Indian society, you could use it to the great extent. All right. Then, of course, in the politics first part covers the history, the modern history, struggle, and the development of Indian polity and the British rule. Also, तुम्हाला जर करायचं असेल आणि समोरच्याचं तोंड वगैरे बंद करायचं असेल, तर तुम्ही काहीतरी सायंटिफिक आणि काहीतरी फॅक्ट्स मांडून तुम्ही तिथं वर्चस्व प्रस्थापित करू शकता. ऑल राईट.
Sir, your voice is getting lag. Can you please repeat your words?
Am I audible now?
Now it's clear, sir.
Should I stop the video so that you can hear it well, because my connection is not that good, I guess, today. All right. Now I will be audible enough, I guess, because it less. Okay. What I was talking about, the last point, the last 2 points I will repeat. You can also use the study which you already have done in the for the Indian polity in modern history part, that is the Indian freedom struggle and development of Indian polity since British rule, that is the acts which were passed by the British rule. All right. And the last one also, I said that you could use this on the Kattavarcha Gappa if you want to, sometimes आपण काय करतो की बऱ्याचदा घरात काहीतरी गप्पा सांगत असतात की तुमचे आई वडील की अरे ह्या मुलासोबत नको राहू कारण याची कास्ट ही आहे, तर यू कॅन ऑलवेज कम अप विथ थिंग ऑफ द इक्वॅलिटी की नाही नाही आई आपल्या यात आई किंवा वडील नाही नाही आपल्या यात असं लिहिलेलं नाही, आपल्या यात इक्वॅलिटी आहे. आर्टिकल 16 यू कॅन कम अप विथ, आर्टिकल 17 you can come up with. All right. Anyway, so now as we know that there is we have to discuss the syllabus of pre and mains as well. Mains, in pre we do not have the substantial kind of syllabus, that we do not get an perfect idea what would they ask, but by analyzing the previous year's question papers we could come to a certain positions where we could say that this is what we have to read. All right. On the basis of that, as I already have went through the previous year's question papers, not just 5 years, you will have to go through the last 5 years, but I have went through the last 20 years question papers, and what I have found is that the basic thing about the question pattern they ask, or question pattern in UPSC prelim you can see, is they ask questions only about the structures and functioning in simple manner. That is the basic questions they will ask. What do you mean by structure and functioning? It includes or any kind of such thing, means questions they can ask questions directly from the constitution. Most of the questions from the direct comes from direct constitution in prelim examination. Then Then we have individuals' rights, of course, the fundamental rights. Part 3 of the Constitution becomes of utmost importance, and that is the only thing. And whatever kind of articles you read in that, you should remember all the articles in that part. Not all the Constitution, not all the articles from Constitution, but of course from the part of fundamental rights. Then, of course, duties and responsibilities to the structure, power, functions. You will be asked about the duties. Means I already have told you that as a bureaucrat or as collector, what will be your duties. For example, let's not talk about the collector. Let's talk about the CJI. As a CJI, what will be your duties to perform? Responsibilities to the structures means what? As a if we consider the primary responsibility of the parliament is to legislate, or to pass the law which will be beneficial for the Indian polity. Then power means what kinds of power do you have? So there are a lot of things which comes into the structure of the Indian polity, and there are a lot of power which were assigned them to perform in well manner or efficiently. So that's why every structure or every part of this structure has been assigned with certain powers. Why? Perform in well manner, efficient manner, and without any hindrances. Then functions, I already have told you functions mean you have certain functions. For example, Panchayat Raj system, Gram Panchayat has been assigned or delegated with certain kind of functions to perform. That you should know. Then next point is about the responsibilities of various institutions of administration. For example, there are a lot of institutions of administration. Let's take the example of Lokpal. Lokpal has certain kind of responsibilities. Then if we talk about the CAG, CAG has certain types of responsibilities to perform. So every institutions, whereas even if we talk about PSUs, that is primary, sorry, public sector undertakings. So public sector undertakings also comes under the institution of administration, but we do not have to study it in this polity. But what I am saying you, they also have the responsibility of distribution of wealth in equitable manner. Wealth or not wealth, or equitable distribution of the resources. All right. Anyway, next point is various previous. Can you please mute your mic? Who it's kind of disturbing. Okay, I put it on the. Okay, so next point is about the various previous and contemporary policies of the government. So whatever kind of policies government is coming up with, we have to study that also. For example, now just now or since the 2014, if we go, Jan Dhan Yojana was there. Then now, before that. Ayushman Bharat policy was there. So this kind of policy we have to study, because as we have already discussed in the previous part, that the government's responsibility is to ensure and inculcate the modern values like equality and liberty. According to that, government also has the responsibility to uplift the people from marginalized background, for example, poor, destitute, or people from downtrodden caste, gender, women, children, and the elderly. They have to take care of all these people, and accordingly, they form the policies. So, this kind of policies we have to study. All right. Then, rights-based issues of vulnerable groups. Again, saying the same thing. We have the some statutory bodies or some constitutional bodies to protect the rights of people from downtrodden caste, people from tribal areas, people from marginalized gender group, for example, women and other LGBTQ community, and children and elderly people also. So we have to ensure that their rights are protected. Then, of course, now as I have already said here that polity is the easiest of the all the subjects uh, to score because of the following reasons. See, if you have the leverage over the polity, these Indian polity subjects, you would be able to grab more marks. and you have to ensure while preparing for such services that you should cover all the topics from polity. You will have to cover all the things. uh, as I already have told you that in the prelims they do not ask you the tricky questions. One or two maybe will might be there, but not most of them. So if you go through the last year 2019 prelim question paper, they have asked 17 questions in very straightforward manner than out of 18 or 19. So mostly they ask you the straightforward questions, and if you have already revised this polity thoroughly enough, then you can get most of the answers right, if even if you are not 100% accurate.
Sir, I have made you the
Approaching of
host. Huh? Sorry for this.
yes sir.
Right,
Yes sir.
right. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, you can see my screen now, right? Okay. So the questions are generally, in prelims, they are easy to moderate. So that's why you don't have to worry about it. Even if you cover the factual data of the polity questions for prelims, that will be more than enough. And that's why, see, even I do not believe in kind of, guides to study for any subject, but for the prelims and for the polity, I would say that, uh, the book by the Lakshmikant would be more than enough. You don't have to look, beyond that, so beyond any point. So but for the mains we will come to that part. But for the mains it's not the enough book at all. It will not even cover the 10%. Why? Because I will tell you one point. I have seen many people, I have been through this process of UPSC, and I have seen many people as a friend, peers, and as a students also. They know everything which has been given in Lakshmikant. They know each and every factual data, but they could not be able to form their own opinions. Why? Because they only rely on the Lakshmikant. So that's why I have mentioned here that along with Lakshmikant you should also do selective reading from the DD Basu. NCRTs are the must, but Subhash Kashyap would also you can refer for the prelims. All right. So that's why I'm saying that you have to study not just from the point of view of the prelims but mains also. But of course whenever you are studying for the prelim, the emphasis must be on the Lakshmikant. All right. So now let's discuss the syllabus of mains GS, which we also call as GS2, which comprises three parts. First, of course, the Indian Constitution. Second is about the governance issues we face in contemporary times. And the third thing is international relations. When I say international relations, it is not about the international relations theories and all of things. International relations means bilateral, trilateral, and multilateral relations of India with the other countries only. So that is, you are going to study international relations in the context of India only. All right. So what is why what makes this paper most interesting and most interesting and kind of very much good read is its distinct and interesting fact of dynamic nature. All right, it is a very dynamic paper. Even if you read Lakshmikant or any other guide, regular guide, recommended regular guide, you will have to you should be able to connect it with whatever is happening around yourself. For example, yesterday only in the paper I read the news about the delimitation commission. Now you won't be you will get some part of reading in that Lakshmikant or any other guide, but you will not be able to connect it with the this news. Why? Because we have why because we why because of the dynamic nature of the polity. Even if you are reading some facts uh, from the constitutions, the interpretation, the final interpretation is in the hands of the Supreme Court, as all of us know. But Supreme Court also changes its interpretation of one thing from time to time. So that's why you should understand this dynamics of the polity, and that's why you should also focus on contemporary issues or the current affairs along with reading the factual and static data. Anyway, so why I was telling you this, because GS2, the main syllabus for polity is that dynamic. All right. So we are go through it so that next
Sir,
lecture
you're
would
not
be
audible.
more interesting and it would be more easier for you to grasp. Let's start with the one first meanings, that is the government and the
Will
British
you
rule
repeat
and the other
again
things.
because your voice is not audible?
Am I audible now?
Yes, sir. Will you
Am I
repeat
audible now?
again? Yes,
Yes,
Am I
sir,
sir.
you're
audible?
audible now.
Now
Hello, sir. Sir, your voice is not audible, sir. Hello, Hitesh, sir. Hello. Have the-
I guess sir have some network problem.
Yeah, he'll be back in a minute. He'll be back. There's some technical
Yes,
glitch. He'll be back.
yes, sir. Yeah, yeah. He's कितना घास में से 1 2 3 4 5
now
6
audible?
7 8.
Hello?
Yes, sir. You're audible.
Okay, great. So we were talking about the first point of the main syllabus, historical underpinnings, where you will have to study the acts and laws which were passed during the British rule, and also the significant events which contributed to the Indian constitutions and the formation of Indian polity. For example, various what we can do, annual sessions. All right, then evolution, of course, is the same. The various acts which were passed by the
Yes, sir. 1 minute,
uh,
sir. 1 minute, sir. Sir, Bhushan sir has made you the host. Okay, sir. You can go ahead now.
okay, fine, okay.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Yes, yes. Okay. So again, the amendments, the significant provisions, there are, you don't have to remember all the amendments, but there are certain amendments which have certain significance and importance. Then provisions, of course, you will have to, understand some provisions, and of basic structure, which is very hot and favorite topic of the UPS. Then second is about the functions and responsibilities of the union government and the states governments and issues and challenges pertaining to the federal structure. This is the kind of bigger topic where you will have to understand minute nuances in very deep manner. Like feudal structure, some people call it cooperative federalism, some people call it destructive federalism. So there are many political scholars, political scientists who have called it or given it various names. The devolution of powers. So there is difference between the devolution of powers, separation of powers, and division of powers that you will have to understand in this topic. And of course, finances up to the local levels and challenges there in local levels, as in finances, how Indian government or Indian polity handle the finances from the top to the bottom, that is your Panchayati Raj system. Then separation of powers between the various organs and dispute redressal mechanism. As you know that there we always face this topic, and this is the topic which is always which will be always in the news. All right, separation of powers between the various organs and mechanism which we have come up with to uh, redress or to address these problems and solutions. All right, we will be able to understand it. For example, there are a lot of tribunals which we have already established to solve such problems of separation of power. Then comparison of the Indian constitutional schemes with that of the other countries. For example, we have taken many things from other countries' constitutions. For if I am allowed to give the example is like for emergency provision DPS is from the Ireland, like that. We have to compare it. Also, we have to compare the presidential system of America with that of the parliamentary system of India. Then parliament and state legislatures, here we understand to understand the structure, that is the number of people members which we need in parliament, which we need in state legislatures, the functionings, the business they conduct on the daily basis, how the proceedings go on, how the acts are passed, how the legislations are being passed, then powers which are given to certain people, privileges which have been given to the speakers and all the other members, and issues arising out of this. So there are many issues which we face in day-to-day business of the parliament regarding the powers also, functions also, and privileges also. And also we face that part comes in the separation of powers, which we already have earlier discussed. The differences between the parliament or the powers of maybe the speaker and the CGI. Uh, to understand even this structure and functionings, we have to understand that code of honor also, what positions, which a position comes on the what number. Anyway, that we will go into the deeper manner. Next point is about the structure, organization, and functioning of the executive, that is your cabinet and the other parameters of the cabinet or other wings of the executive bodies. And the judiciary, then ministries, departments of the governments, the pressure groups. In pressure groups we can talk about the civil societies, various civil societies, the NGOs, and others, and formal and informal associations which are there in the Indian polity. For example, there can be a trade unions which can influence the legislations which are being passed in the state governments or the parliament, or and their role in the polity. So this is the example the important point, salient features of the representations of people's act. So you can see the various things which building the post on these bodies, their powers, what powers they have, the functions they are assigned with, and the responsibilities they are delegated with. Next point is about not just we are not just going to study constitutional bodies but statutory body also. Just now earlier I gave you the example of delimitation commission, which also is a statutory body. Then regulatory bodies as in SEBI is a regulatory body to regulate the matters or the daily functionings which happening in the share market and other security markets. And various causes judicial bodies also, there are a lot of causes judicial bodies. For example, we establish kind of tribunals, or kind of committees which are headed by the retired Supreme Court judges or serving Supreme Court judges. They are also called as the causes judicial bodies. There are many examples to give for this, and there is no definite structure for causes judicial bodies. It is a dynamic kind of body, but we will study it. All right, then the next point is about the government policies and interventions for development in various sector and issues arising out of their design and implementation. Here, what we are trying to study, for example, government policies and interventions for development. That is, whatever kind of development we need in various sectors. That is, maybe it can be a social sector, it can be economic sector, and the subsectors from those economic and social also. For example, I will give you the example. We have the PDS system, that is public distribution system, to ensure that to ensure our food security in India. That is to uplift the marginalized, especially the poor people from India, to uplift them from the poor background. So that is one kind of the government policy or intervention which is done for the development in this sector, and issues arising out of it. For example, you know uh, PDS system or APMCs, they are not functioning really well in some in some states, but in some states they are really well. PDS system is too much efficient in Chhattisgarh, but it is it is performing very badly in states like Bihar, Uttar Pradesh, and Gujarat. So these are the kind of things which we have to study under this point. The sub point of this, sub point of the same point is development process and development industries. That is the role of NGOs in development. Then SHGs, self-help groups. Then various groups and associations, donors, charities, institutional and other stakeholders. This is a very dynamic topic. For this, whole topic, you will have to keep a tab on daily events which are happening around us. You have to also focus on the stories which come in various papers like Indian Express, or the stories in the magazine supplementary of the Hindu. So you have to ensure this, and you also need some extra supplementary readings, which I suggest you should read. But even if you are not reading, we are going to cover it in these lectures. In Lokayan Academy, we always cover these things. We, as a faculty, we read various books, so that you shouldn't have to read it. We read it, we make it concise for you and give you. So we read 6 to 7 books to just explain one point. Anyway, moving to the next point: welfare schemes for vulnerable sections of the population by the center and states. So there are a lot of welfare schemes we have. For example, again, let's give the example of Jan Dhan Yojana, or maybe Indira Awas Yojana, which has been renamed now by Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, whatever it is. But there are a lot of Awas Yojanas. There are a lot of things which are there to provide food, shelter, clothing, or to fulfill the needs of primary needs of the people. The most important primary needs today are the health and education. All right, so we have to study this also in these schemes, welfare schemes. Then there are some kind of mechanisms, laws to uh, uh, for the implementation of these schemes. Then we have to study that also. All right, uh, moving to the next point, there are issues related to and related point to the last one only. Now from this point, welfare schemes for vulnerable, it is a very different sections which is very dynamic, and you won't be able to find a single book which will tell you about this. You need kind of very dynamic the study for this also, and dynamic types of lectures also. So issues relating to development and management of social sector, then services relating to health, education, human resources, which we have already discussed. Issues relating to poverty and hunger, this is a very basic point, I don't need to explain it in deep manner. The next point is about the aspect of governance, transparency and accountability, e-governance. So there are a lot of things which we, some nowadays we are trying to computerize the whole system, so that there will be a minimum interventions by the humans, to ensure there is the process is uncorrupt, the process is transparent. So there are a lot of things which we need to study here. For example, models also, there is a model, APMC model, which were
Yeah,
implemented by
Yogesh T406.
hello.
Yogesh
Okay.
building का कोई
Hello, sir. You continue. Sir.
Okay. So then role of civil service in democracy. Now whatever you are going to be in the future after clearing the examinations, what exactly you are going to do to ensure this democratic framework of the polity. All right. So we have to study this here. Then India and its neighborhood. Now here the next part, the third part of the paper comes in India and its neighborhood. The relations of India with the China, Nepal. Now you can see it's in the news that we are facing a lot of troubles on the LAC, which we share with the China. And earlier, the 2 weeks ago also we were facing some issues with the Nepal also, the border issues. 2 to 3 years back, for 4 years back, we were facing issues with border issues with Bangladesh also. Not just border issues, we discuss the trade also, the other kind of relations, cultural, social, economical, all kind of relations. Then bilateral relations, bilateral means Indo-US, Indo-Russia, India, South Africa, India, Canada, like this. Regional, we have a lot of regional bodies like SAARC we have. Then we are the observatory, we have the observatory status in ASEAN. There are a lot of regional groupings also. There is SCO, we have to study those, all of those. Global groupings, we were just, right now, G7 is in the news since last 2 to 3 days. We also have to discuss and study it. Then agreements involving India and affecting India's interests. This is very simple point, you will be able to understand. Next point is about effect of policies and politics of developing countries. This is the very important and pertinent point, because it is very dynamic. Because we are fighting in the WTO over these issues, that why there are certain concessions have been given to developed countries, and why developing countries are not given with certain conditions in terms of food security and other things and the subsidies. All right, so you will be able to understand Indian diaspora, the people who are there of Indian origin or NRIs or OCIs. We have to study about them also. Then important international institutions, all of you know, there are various international institutions, UN and its different wings, IMF, World Bank, Asian Development Bank, and all those things. So we have to study these also. All right, so this was the uh, uh, so here I rest these today's sessions. In the next sessions, what we do, we are going to discuss the previous year's question papers, finding the trends out of it, what UPSC can ask and what it has already asked. We are going to discuss it for prelims and mains both. So this is where I rest today's lecture, and if you have any doubt, you may choose to ask. Anybody?
Sir, actually, according this, my question is related to MPSC, sir. Uh, what is the marks weightage and how many questions are covered every year in preliminary paper in MPSC, sir?
That's what I have said already, that